very much, Oscars. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure to be here this morning and to be able to share our views of what's happening in cyberspace these days. Before I start into the presentation, I would like to echo General Yarker's comments about how spectacularly successful the organization of this conference is, given the fact that it's a CERT team that has done, as I understand, most of the heavy lifting. So congratulations and thank you to CERT.LV and its partners for bringing us together and allowing us to share so much useful information. So, presuming that not everybody understands the ins and outs of NATO, I would like to start by establishing a little bit of context of who we are. So the NATO Cyber Security Centre is a business unit within the NATO Communications and Information Agency, the NCIA. And the NCIA is the principal provider of IT solutions and services to NATO. So we enable NATO and the allies to perform their political consultation on the use of their military forces and the networks and system that will allow them to do command and control of the forces that the allies put under NATO command. So it's a big IT provider. It runs a number of services and projects to continually transform those services and improve them and keep them up to date so that the allies can perform their collective cyber defense, collective defense actually, including cyber defense. So that's the NCIA, and we're part of that. The NCIA obviously offers a large number of different services. It's a service-oriented organization that provides all of these communications and information system, as we call them, to deliver the command and control functionalities, applications, networks that allow all this to happen. And obviously, cybersecurity is one of these areas of services. How do we do it? Well, we're one of the 40+ NATO entities. We are a customer-funded entity, which means that if somebody in NATO needs NCIA to do something, they will specify what they need. We will give them a quote, they will agree to it, and then we will execute, and they will transfer their money to us. And then we use that to do the job. The numbers you see on the screen are from 2023. Just shy of 900 million is what revenue we processed. 60% of that we dispatched to industry under contract to get the job done from industry. The rest paid salaries and sort of the running of our facilities and whatnot. Within the NCIA, then we have the NATO Cyber Security Centre. Our mandate is actually to protect and defend NATO's networks. We are the people that are at the keyboard doing the defense itself, operating all the security control, but also providing advice on how to engineer and deploy secure systems. We organize ourselves obviously into services. We also run capability development projects which increase the capabilities of NATO. And we also conduct the defensive cyber operations, obviously with our colleagues. And ultimately within the Alliance, we are a hub for information sharing and exchange of practices. And we run a couple of misspent instances with the allies as well as partners to exchange technical information. Looking at the bigger picture, we're not the only ones doing cybersecurity within NATO. Obviously, we're at the technical level, hands-on keyboard, delivering sort of operating the security control and delivering some defensive effects within the networks. We work with different NATO entities as well, and we have our industry suppliers that are helping us deliver these services, and we're buying products and services from them, and we're collaborating with different other external organizations. But there is also a strategic aspect, a political aspect, and we have colleagues working that. And there's a military aspect, and obviously we have all the operational planners and the strategic domain advisors that are handling cyber within the military domain, enabling multi-domain operations. All of this governed, obviously, by the allies. More specifically, we're based in 4 locations. Most of us are in Mons in Belgium. We have quite a good group in The Hague in the Netherlands, and we have a few in Braine-l'Alleud, which is just south of Brussels, and a handful in Brunsum. As a service organization, we organize about 24 services that we deliver. We're running over 60 projects to bring up the capabilities in cyber within the Alliance. But we also provide advice to over 300 different projects that are implementing C2 systems across NATO, advising on the cyber components of those. We do this with about 300 people. Just shy of 10% of these are in uniform supplied by the allies within our structure. And we've outsourced essentially 25% of our workforce, which is industry providers that are sitting in our ranks, doing levels of effort or service contracts with us to deliver our services. Generally speaking, we're talking about just shy of €500 million in the coming years of both services and projects. 10% of that going towards salary, roughly speaking. So that's the context. What are the challenges that we face? Well, I don't need to tell you this, it's in the news every day. The threat landscape is significantly changed. If we go from exploding pagers to the threat of tactical nuclear weapons, in conventional space, things are very different. We are now talking about things that a few years ago we would not have thought, probable, we would have deemed negligible, and we wouldn't have worried about it. But now we need to worry about that. There is a corresponding sort of increase in the threat within cyberspace, obviously. And that makes it very difficult now to, sort of decide what do we do with the resource that we have, because this threat has significantly changed very rapidly. There's a lot of uncertainty. It's one thing to say this can happen, but will it happen, and how much do I need to care for it? It is very difficult to judge the probability of these edge case scenarios. So we have a lot of difficulty determining what's best to do if this happens or that happens or this happens. So this uncertainty makes decision making very difficult. It requires a lot more consultation. It's time consuming, and it's a real challenge. We're also operating in a very dynamic environment. You all know how fast things are changing. We're also deploying more and more and more systems to beef up NATO's structures, to do more command and control. And we have an increased importance of the CDC2 system. That's sort of from our point of view, not in theory, because they were always meant to do this. But in the past, we didn't think it as likely that we would use them in anger as we do now. So we have these increased probability of significant action happening where we're going to really need to use this system. And from our perspective, this means that we now, go from a generic definition of what they're going to be used to specific use cases which are help us more crystallize on really what really matter, and now realize the true impact because the scenarios are more specific. And we need to work at speed of relevance. Dare I use the word bureaucracy? Like all major and large organizations, there's a number of processes in NATO that maybe not so adapted anymore to the changing landscape. So we need to move faster, we need to improve the way we do things, and I think that's the situation for every government as well. So it's extremely challenging now to be able to move at the speed we need to move, given how fast the environment is changing. And the breadth and depth of the issues that we need to be addressed. You all know how complex cyberspace is, how difficult it is to fully understand what needs to be done. And it's about how we organize the workforce and the structure so that the technical information, the bits and bytes in every aspect of cyberspace are brought together in summaries, increasing summaries that are able to probably inform timely and efficient decision-making at the top levels. And this is a real challenge. It's a complex domain with a lot of things to be considered, and it's very difficult to organize the structure that will allow us to understand all of this and allow our leaders to make the right decision. So these are the challenges we're facing. Obviously, there's always opportunities as well. So this clear and present danger that we face drives unity of effort. We all understand now that we must move much more faster and what we need to do. So we're all more working closely together. There's this willingness to accelerate. Everybody recognizes that we're not moving fast enough, that the bureaucracy needs to be eliminated, that we need to work at greater speed. And there's a willingness to invest as well. which is a blessing. Now it's not so difficult to justify some procurement actions. And it may come to be a curse because spending money is also difficult. So at some point, we might have more money than we can spend, which is going to be our next challenge. But at least for the moment, we can see that the allies are willing to invest in cybersecurity more than they used in the past. And so that's an opportunity. And we spoke about cyber becoming a domain of warfare. And it has been declared for a number of years. But for that to actually materialize takes quite a bit of time. And I think if we were to project the equivalent of land forces into cyber, I would say that we're going to war in pickup trucks with shotguns. And then we wonder why, the enemy takes us out. If I take the air analogy, I think we're flying Cessnas and dropping Molotov cocktails over. We don't have, effective precision-guided munitions that go at long range and stealth fighter. And the Navy equivalent would be that we're in canoes with arrows, bows and arrows, and we can't sort of go forward and shoot at the same time. In my opinion, that's the level of maturity that we actually have right now in cyber. And so we need to increase that a whole lot more, but that thinking is starting to get there. And the key question is, what's the equivalent to a carrier strike group, a nuclear submarine, a squadron of stealth bomber flying information to take out a number of targets? How do we organize the cyber workforce to be able to deliver those effects? That's what it will be when we integrate all this also within the context of multi-domain operations. Then we can probably say we have cyber as a proper domain of warfare. It's starting to evolve this way, but we still have quite a way to go. And I think this was stated a number of times during this workshop. So what are we doing about these challenges and opportunities? We're trying to be more strategic. What does that mean? Well, I'll give you how we're approaching it. And I cannot say that this is a proven method that will work. It's what we've started to do. And the idea is that you need to spend some time to be ready for the future. So what we're trying to do is on maybe, let's say, 3 times a year, sit down and conduct a strategic workshop. Define what will be the world 2 and 5 years from now. State assumptions about what the number of CIS will have to protect, the number of staff we need to do this, what are going to be the threats, whether quantum will defeat PKI, all those things, we document those things. When we know what the environment is going to be at those future stages, we then look at what do we need to do to excel at our mandate in that environment. Once we've defined that, then we look at the path to get there. And then we can identify more fundamental actions that change, big long-term parameters for enabling us to be successful in the future. And once we've done that, we'll come out with actions that we need to take on more long-term, which will better position us in the future. We all know that we've got fires burning everywhere, and we're trying to deal with the day-to-day, but if you don't spend time into the future, now that it's changing faster and faster, you are going to suffer even more. So you need to take that time. So this is our method to try to be strategic. And you do this every 4 months, let's say. And when you review it, you build up on it, you review what you've done 4 months ago, and soon enough you'll find that you're reviewing, your predictions are actually going to come to be reviewed. It'll be 2 years later, you look at what you thought would be, and then you can improve yourself onto these predictions. So it's about taking the time with a method to think about the future and get ready. We're operationalizing our ways of working, so we reorged within the NCSC. We stood up an operations support branch. And this allows us, as I told you, that we conduct defensive cyber operations and we stand up incident task forces. We can now have a standing crew that will help with the logistics, the communications, all the support that these task force will do. Which means that our experts, when we put them together to deal with a specific problem that came up, are going to have less administrative work to do. They'll be better supported by a standing structure. We're also improving the way we manage information and we communicate and disseminate this information in a time of crisis. We're supporting information management practices and tools and staff that are at the ready to provide that. We've seen cases in meetings where people convene, They start to try to make decision. It's, you know, Friday night, 8 o'clock. They need to come back to Saturday morning. They are very quick. They don't have time to disseminate. Decisions are made, but the rationale, the supporting information, the decisions sometimes are not properly captured and communicated to the wider set of stakeholders. And even in some cases, they're at the meetings and they're not using the latest, most accurate information from the previous meeting they didn't attend. So all of this needs to be supported by an information sharing support group that will actually listen, provide the minutes, the decision, take notes of the decision taken, and disseminate that to all the other stakeholders, which relieves the experts from all of these supporting duties and allows them to focus on delivering their expertise. So different little construct that allow us to perform better under pressure. We're taking a data-centric approach. We're implementing across the NCSC centralized systems to bring the data together. This will allow us to control our ontologies and to better use modern tools that exploit this data and give us better information for decision making. We're improving our capability delivery. We are changing the structures and the way our people are working to make sure that the capabilities which are still taking a long time to deliver within NATO are more aligned to our needs, and that the transition of new capabilities into service is better performed. And echoing what General Yarker said about trust, and I think this is an important thing, we are being more trusting of our relationships, of our partner. And I didn't use the word build trust because building trust is known to take years and seconds to destroy. We don't have years. We don't have time. And I think this is an important message. And General Yarker did say that we know each other for many years. In fact, some of you weren't born when we first met. We didn't coordinate this. And I just point that out because it just speaks that these 2 points of view say the same thing to you, and I think that's quite meaningful given that we come from a different sort of environment and we're looking at the same issues and coming to the same conclusion without having to talk to each other. Trust is fundamental. If you look to the future, you cannot deliver a successful cyber security, cyber defense if you don't trust your partner and you work with them. And you don't have, as I said, you don't have time to build this. So you need to actually just grab their hands and jump and do it. And you know, this is about working more closely at setting expectations, at tackling issues, and resolving them as you go along. Most of the meetings I go to on trying to reorganize NATO and make our workforce perform better across organizational boundaries are all looking at the past and saying, well, this happened, they can't do that, they can't do this. And everybody's looking in the past. If you look to the future, there's no winning unless you're working together. So you have to have that trust, and you don't have time to build it. So you just have to you know, take it for granted and go. And then we're going to implement resilience by design. And I just want to take a very quick deep dive on this one. What does it mean? Well, for us, it's obviously taking the traditional DevSecOps approach where all of the systems that you put out are actually coming out of agile processes which have embedded on them security verification tools that improve the security of the code that's being produced. We all know about that, but it's also using infrastructure as code so that you can redeploy your systems very quickly at the push of a button, and to build systems that are modular so that if you have a cyber attack, you can segregate and contain different things to contain the attack and keep going with parts of the system that were not affected. All of this gives you this agility and a little bit of resilience, but it goes beyond that. So what we want to do is deploy these systems as part of the pipelines of continuous improvement and development, to deploy them on a cyber range and make them available, make it possible for us to instantiate them very quickly. And the difference between a cyber range and a traditional testing environment that developers use is the cyber range has the tools that support exercises. And the testing environments are primarily focused at what the developers do with the code to meet the specification of the system, which are generally weak in security. Whereas in the range, as you will see, we bring them into continuous attack. So you've got your system, you've got your pipeline with the security tools that reduce the number of vulnerabilities that you build into them. So you have more security by design. You deploy that on the cyber range, and then you do an attack against the system. You actually also have a replica of your defensive system, and you integrate them on the cyber range, collecting the logs, aggregating logs, and connecting to different network points to capture the traffic, and then you let the attackers go against it. And then you verify on the blue team whether you're seeing properly in your security tools all of these attack happenings. And then once you've done that, you meet, the attackers can discuss, we did this, we were successful here. The defenders can say, well, we didn't pick that up, but we picked that up. And the developers are at the table. And then we instruct the developers, okay, modify the system, I need visibility about that, I need less of this and more of that. And they change the system so it's more defendable. So the whole point is to increase the defendability of the system. And when you do this on the cyber range as well, you actually bring in the user of the systems and the leadership, and you involve them in using the software while it's under attack. So they will have seen it, and they will have seen how it fails, and they'll be able to understand those failure modes and what to do about them. So you're more resilient this way. And so you are improving continuously as part of the agile development process, the resilience and defendability of your network. And also we try to do this graceful degradation. So what parts of the systems are really critical, and how do I stop some services and reduce the attack surface if I fall under attack so that my system can continue even though some of the functionality is under attack. I can just shed it and keep going with the important stuff. And so the last bit that we try to do as well is probably implement, if you want, exercise support within the system. So if I'm operating a tool, an application, a C2 system, I can click an exercise mode, and then I can conduct an exercise, and I'm able to see the real life activity alongside the exercise things, and I'm actually using exactly the same system to run the exercise. And this will give us a better ability to train as we fight, because it's exact tooling. I'm at my desk. It's the system that I use. It's got all of the same data. It's got all of the contact information, all the connections, all the reality of the real system. So my training becomes a lot more realistic. And then we have that support, and if something happens, you can click the button, exit exercise mode, and now you're back to work with the same system. So all of those things together constitute what we call resilience by design. So that's what we're doing to within existing means at the NCSC to address the challenges and opportunities. Within NATO, you will have seen that in July at the Washington summit, there was a declaration that NATO will stand up a new integrated cyber defense center, which we lovingly call the NIC. They skipped the D, I'm not sure why. It has three functions. The first of it is to establish situational awareness across cyberspace. And there's an important bit in here, which is a new function for NATO, because this cyberspace situational awareness covers, obviously, the blue picture, which is what does NATO have and what do we need to protect and defend. The red picture, who's attacking us. But it also now includes what we call the white picture. And the white picture is actually all of the digital system that are operated by critical national infrastructures that the forces of NATO will rely upon to conduct the operation. And previously this was within the purview of the allies, but now NATO has a role to bring that picture together to inform the NATO commanders of what's going on in the civilian sector if it is important for military operation. So that's a completely new function. It also will do what we in the NCSC and our colleagues beyond the NCSC do, protect and defend NATO networks. And it will also enable cyber operations to be coordinated with the rest of the conventional operation under the concept of the multi-domain operations. And so there's a number of people that will increase our ability to treat cyberspace as a domain of warfare and do coordinated action across all of these domains. So these are the three major functions of the new NIC. How do we achieve that? Well, it's not a new NATO entity. That would be disruptive. It would take a long time. And in the current environment, that would not be the best approach. we're taking existing structures with their roles, responsibilities, and authorities unchanged, and we're co-locating people because we're all here physically because we know that this makes a difference in how we work. If you work day to day next to other parties from a different organization, you will work in a more interoperable fashion. And we're developing more common processes that will execute at greater speed across these organizational boundaries and use common systems, because we still have pieces of NATO that have different IT system with limited abilities to interact, and so we need to solve that problem. And we're scaling up the workforce. Obviously, there will be, over the years, an increase in the number of staff into the NIC, which will beef up the workforce within NATO. So what are the key takeaways from this? Have a strategic outlook. I gave you what we're going to try as a method to be strategic. There are other ways to do it. But the point is, it's fast changing, much faster than in previous year. Tomorrow will be a very different day. And we have a tendency to solve problems in the past. So what I'm advising you is take the time to actually think of what will be the future. What do I need to excel at my mandate in that new environment, and then to create, you know, a path of changing fundamentals to enable you to be more successful in a completely different environment that awaits us. Accelerate. Things are moving quickly. It is very clear that the situation, global situation, can change drastically, very rapidly. So we need to speed up, shed some bureaucracy, and move faster. As General Yarker pointed out several times, this trust thing, okay, build it if you can, but you don't have time to build it. Just grab your partner's hands and jump, your parachute will open. You have to trust your relationships and operate in a wider sort of construct with your partners. And think out of the box. We have to change a number of things in the way we do things. Our assumptions of the past are not going to hold in the future. You need to quite often start with a blank sheet of paper, challenge assumptions, challenge existing processes, and again, tackle this problem with bureaucracy. So this concludes my presentation. I hope you found it useful, and I'd be very happy to take any questions you might have.
Yes, we will, definitely, because we have just 2 or 3 minutes and so many questions. Can you hold your cyber socks?
Oh, thank you so much.
If possible, please answer very shortly. Does outsourcing cybersecurity is cost efficient and practical?
It's not cost efficient. It will cost more, but we also can't recruit at speed. So it's a combination of recruiting new people, but getting from industry what we need. It's also very challenging because of the security regulations within NATO. But there's not much we can do.
Yeah. Next question. Does your center work with NASA or SpaceX in any level to protect cyberspace in space?
Not yet. Space is a domain that NATO is interested, but we don't work with these entities yet.
All right, there's a tricky one about being offensive instead of being defensive. Several questions actually like that. Shouldn't we, as NATO, be, you know, more offensive so that the threatening countries feel that, or we just always respond? And probably this goes wider a bit about helping Ukraine as well.
Yeah, so NATO is a defensive alliance, and the allies conduct the offensive operations. And so we have mechanisms to coordinate with the allies what the NATO command structure might think is the appropriate thing to do in cyberspace, and they will request the allies to provide the offensive capability. And that's in the context of obviously defending our nations.
What will be the functions of the new NATO Integrated Cyber Defense Center, and what will be the interaction with the existing center?
So most, if not all of our staff will be inside this NIC. So the NCSC provides most of the workforce for the NIC. We have a lot of colleagues also that are joining it. And in the end, the 3 functions I stated, which is the situational awareness across all of cyberspace, protecting and defending NATO's network and enabling us to do multi-domain operations.
I believe you get this question these days a lot about the Center of Excellence in Estonia.
Yeah.
What's the difference or relation between you two?
So the NATO CCDCOE is a multinational organization which is accredited by NATO, and it supports NATO and is given some tasks to perform for NATO, but it is essentially a think tank. The NCSC, the NATO Cyber Security Centre, is actually the unit that defends NATO's network and conducts all the defensive cyber operations. So we have the hands-on keyboard and actually defend NATO's network.
Does your center only provide cyber operations services only to NATO entities or also NATO countries per request of assistance?
So we provide the services to NATO. Now the countries have a mechanism to request NATO assistance, and then we have the standing rapid reaction teams, which could be deployed to an ally. But this requires a decision at the top level to send the NATO resources to that specific country. So we could assist, but we're mainly focused on NATO networks.
All right, one last one about future. Somebody's asking about the future in 5 years in the world. What would be the key identified pillars of technology as emerging technologies? What do you think?
Okay,
yeah, funny one.
That's a
Yeah.
I don't want to say AI. I mean, maybe it's quantum instead. No, let's go with quantum.
Quantum. Nice. Are you satisfied with the answer? Whoever you are that asked the question. Any more questions from the audience? We don't have time, but we have time, yes, for one question here.
I do have a question about this resilient by design, or actually more specifically about this graceful degradation and the motivation for question, and whether you can elaborate how well is it working in real life. And motivation is that making or designing systems more resilient makes them more complicated, and more complicated systems tend to be less resilient.
I think armored vehicles, fighter aircrafts are pretty complicated systems. So the assumption is we'll succeed. It is more complicated, but maybe it isn't after all if that's done from the beginning as part of the design, and if we build best practices towards that. You know, using conventional software and libraries to build up our systems right now, some of the NATO C2 systems and the C2 systems used even by our allies are based on the same operating system that your grandparents used to do social media and shop online. Do we really need to use the same kind of common consumer level systems to do this? So we have to prove that this works, but the assumption is that, you know, if we can do it in the conventional space, we'll be able to do it in the cyberspace as well. And certainly gradually reducing the attack surface is quite helpful to keep the critical functions to deliver during a cyber attack.
Luc, with this, I thank you so much for being
with
us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
And yes.